Jimmy Deal's Celebrity Spotlight Show. Today's guest is Jimmy.
Well, he's a legendary radio host, a voiceover actor, TV personality. He's done it all. Welcome to the show, Shadoe Stevens. How are you, Shadoe?
Thank, excellent, and getting better with every breath. Oh, there I go again. Did you feel that?
I did. I felt it. You were born in Jamestown, North Dakota, 1957. Life magazine did an article about you entitled America's Youngest DJ. Tell us about that.
The world's youngest DJ. In fact, where is I have that picture somewhere here in my studio. I'll see if I can find it. Hold on.
Cool.
Where'd it go? Oh, for the love of God. Oh, there it is. Oh, this one says the first one was world's youngest, and this one says North Dakota's youngest.
Oh wow! Check out that picture. So awesome. KEYJ Radio 14.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. No wonder I became a stoner. Key J, ILO, pick. Like it was doomed.
So you wanted to be a DJ from a very young age, right? You had your own radio transmitter in your attic. Is that how that started?
Well, I lived on the third floor of my house in Jamestown, and I was given a wireless transmitter kit that would allow, called a wireless broadcaster, and you were able to, solder it together, which I could do at 10 years old, and follow directions. And then you could broadcast into another room, and so then I thought, I got to soup it up. So I go to the guy that fixed televisions at Martin's, and the guy said, "Oh yeah, well you can do this and this." And whatever, you have to put up a big antenna. So I put up a 100-foot antenna from the top of the 3-story house to the top of an evergreen tree, which I climbed up and climbed to the top of the house and hung upside down, hammering a loop into the side of the house so that I could string the wire of the antenna through my teeth. You would think that my parents might have been alarmed. Well, they didn't know. But I went back there last year and looked at it and went, "Are you kidding me?" Oh, I should show you the picture. It's terrifying. Upside down on the, like a roof like this, like crawled along the edge and hung upside down with a hammer.
So how far did it broadcast?
About a mile.
Really?
We'd put on an album. We put on a rock album, and then we would go out in the car and listen and see how far we could hear it. And we say, "Oh, it was so great. It was magic." And, it was just radio and art was all I was interested in. And I stayed with that I was hired at the local radio station to do this, Saturday morning rock show. And then I worked there through high school, and then I worked my way 5 years of college in radio, and it was destined. I was an art major, but radio is like what paid the bills and seemed like a good idea at the time.
What made you want to be a DJ? Was any influences that made you want to do this business? Stan Freberg
and those 45s that he made were as radio theater, and dun, 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 dun. Went, that is so great. And I would make little, to this day, production is my favorite thing. I would make these little stories on my dad's Webco tape recorder, and they were all really impressive. Like the flying saucer, where you tell the story and then you cut little pieces of song in to carry the narration,
right?
The narrative. Yeah.
Now, by the time you were in high school, you were already a full-time employee as a DJ at a local radio station, and you were also the host of a program called Mr. Midnight. Was that an overnight program, or was that just your name?
Oh, in high school?
Yeah.
No, the Mr. Midnight program is when things settle down,
Yeah.
We did the rock from 8 until 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was news, weather, and sports. And then at 10:30, it's chill. It's time to play Madhavani and, the laid back music with Perry Como and Frank Sinatra, things that will make you relax. And everybody would have a good old time.
Wow.
And so that was my least favorite part, but I was in radio and I was there turning the records.
That's awesome. In college, you also majored in radio and television, right? You worked for a few stations
No,
in
I
North
was
Dakota?
an art major. I was a commercial art major at the University of North Dakota for 3 years, and then I went to the University of Arizona for 2 more years and majored in drama and journalism. But I was putting myself through college with radio. I worked full time.
And you do a lot of
Over
art. You
full
just
time.
mentioned art, right? You do a lot of art. You
I
like
do a
art.
lot of art. Yeah, I do all my art for my projects, Mental Radio, all of the art and promotion and design and marketing and branding and all of that. And then I do art. I have a website called shadoeart.com where it has most of my stuff that I've been doing the last few years. It's kind of, it's all different. Some of it is real big, like 5 by 10 feet, like giant pieces. And then a lot of it is 3 by 5.
Mm-hmm.
And a few littler things, but I'm compulsive. It's like can't be stopped. Help me.
Out of all the radio stations that you worked for, do you have a favorite format or do you like all types of formats?
Well, the formats that I developed, the format that I developed, K-Rock, was really avant-garde at the time. It was very cutting edge. It was 1973.
Wow.
And it was all cutting edge, all rock, all up all the time. Now, in 1973, they had day parting. Day parting was that you would program, music in the morning. It wasn't too shaky. And then the midday for the little housewives that are home, they don't want to be shaken up. But after in the afternoon, then you can start kicking it down. And then at night, you could really crank it up and play those, like wild groups like Led Zeppelin.
Right.
And K-Rock came on, and the whole format was, let's find all the new music and work on it every week. And so I was one of the first people in America to play David Bowie and Queen. Queen was the sound of K-Rock when we began. And it was very, very exciting because this is a party 24 hours a day. We will play Black Sabbath in the morning, and we will play, all the punk rock was coming in, and we were playing all of that. It was very exciting. I liked that. And then I went on to KMET, and that was, album rock, but it was album rock with a personality. I gave it a personality and the branding and the billboards and everything I was in charge of designing.
Well, so you're also a program director as well as a radio personality on the air. So you did it all.
Overworked and underpaid.
Yeah.
And ultimately why I left radio. You know how radio is. I was like, God, if I'm going to work this hard, I'm going to, go for something bigger. It's like, that's when I started my production company.
Oh, that's awesome. So that once you moved back to LA, and that opened a lot of doors for you, right? So being on a radio station in Los Angeles usually does open a lot of doors because there's a lot of opportunities out there.
Yeah, well, I had gone from Tucson to Boston. I was in Boston for a year with a great group of people and owned the city. We had 34% of the audience 12 and over. And on that success, they moved me out to Los Angeles. And that's when I came here and went to work for one of the biggest stations in the country, KHJ, where, Once Upon a Time in LA, they celebrated that whole sound of that era was really exciting. And for me, it was really the big time, but I had also started doing television. So I was Steve Allen's sidekick on a national television show. And they, and it was really exciting. And I was completely out of my, Albert Brooks in broadcast news, how he sweated. That was
Right.
me. I would be sitting there on the couch with Steve Allen. Come on, the legend, the
legend is iconic.
He was, and he would be talking, and I knew how to say, "Here's Steve Allen," with, and then the makeup people would come over during the commercials, and they go, "Boy, you really sweat, don't you?" And I said, "You have no idea." It's like I'm just like, but so then when it came time to promote me at KHJ, they passed over me because they couldn't decide whether I wanted to be on television or on radio. And so I went, are you are you out of your mind? This is like promotes the radio station. It's like, what's wrong with you? And so I said, you can, look, you don't have to give me a raise, just put it in the contract that this time, the next promotion I will get. And they said, well, we can't do that. And so I quit. And then I went to work for KRLA. And then within 3 months, they made me program director of KRLA, and I changed the whole format, and it became quite legendary at the time.
Yes.
KRLA led to K-Rock.
Wow.
And so on.
You did a lot of commercials too.
Yeah, well, that came after K-Rock and KMET when I started the production company, and then I started doing, we were at a period of time, my partner and I were doing half the radio in Southern California, like all of the concerts and all of the albums and the Greek theater and all of the main venues for concerts and everything. And then that led to the Kentucky Fried Movie and Airplane and the Blues Brothers movie and 48 Hours. We did all of that advertising. Mm-hmm. And it was all produced out of our studio at Sunset in Doheny.
Mr. Saturday Night too with Billy Crystal, right?
Mr. Saturday Night came after. I started doing television commercials, and so then it was Federated. And the Federated campaign blew up, and it became, they say the biggest regional advertising campaign in U.S. history. It was phenomenal. Wow. It went there when I started doing the commercials. They went up. Their income rose. Their revenues rose 500% that weekend. Wow. And so we went on to do 1,100 different commercials.
Oh my God. Wow.
And that was all around this character I created called Fred Rated, and Fred Rated for Federated. It was all alliteration. Uh-huh. Fred and Frida Rated for Federated. Fred and Frida Rated my dog Fear for Federated. All this wordplay and the very first idea was basically Dan Aykroyd. I said, how about if I do a Dan Aykroyd Bassomatic pitchman, parody of a pitchman, talks loud, talks fast. At the end, I'll say Federated smashes prices, and I will smash a television with a circus hammer. Went, well, that might work. I said, well, if it works, will you give me creative control so I never do the same thing twice, or people will want to kill me? And he rolled his eyes and went, okay, yeah, sure. And then business went up, and they went from 14 stores locally to 78 stores in 5 states in 4 years.
Wow.
And it was a phenomenon. People would stand in line to meet Fred for 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it was hilarious because the guys I worked with was like a Monty Python team. It's like Chuck Sereno and Dave Nichols and Michael Hill and this group of guys, Chris Culverhouse, all these guys. We were a team, and I had my own studio, and we could do basically almost anything we could think of. So we would get together on Monday, and we'd have our brainstorming session. So who's got what? Rabid Frog Bonanza Days. Rabid Frogs ate our warehouse, and we're passing the savings along to you. That's good. Chuck, get the frogs. Mike, you want to set up the shoot? And then we would write 6 or 8 commercials every week.
Wow.
And we would shoot on Wednesday and edit on Thursday, turn them in on Friday, and start to get went on from 1981 till 1987. It was crazy and the most fun I ever had in my life. And on the heels of that, I started doing, because of the television experience, I had a 3-picture deal with Dino De Laurentiis.
Oh, wow.
Yes, to do movies. Now I was going to be a movie.
That's awesome.
Even I couldn't believe it. It was like, oh God, I got to take this seriously. So I go off, and everything that could go wrong went wrong.
So when did you do the Hollywood Squares?
Right at the same time.
Oh, same time.
Same time. Now, let me back up, and I'll tell you this story because it's so weird. When I was in Boston, a guy named Rick Rosner, a television producer, was really impressed by that. And he put me on Dave Garroway's Tempo Boston. So I would, the youth correspondent, and I would come in and talk about, the Paul is dead. And I would tell them all the clues and, chills. And they were all like charmed by that. So then they gave me a music television show called Gazebo. Then I moved out to Los Angeles, and then it was Rick who put me on with Steve Allen.
Oh.
So Rick was the guy. So now years go by, and in the 80s, Rick says, we're going to reboot Hollywood Squares. Would you, help me do the voice, the announcer for it? And I went, yeah, sure. I'll help you do that. And I did it. And it was the biggest hit of the year. It was like the number one. So they're going into production. He said, we'd like you to do it. And I said, well, I don't want to be, I've got a chance to act now. I don't want to be just an announcer. And so I turned him down 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Third time he said, how about if we just put you in a square and you do it from the square? And then you can talk about this movie that you're doing, and you can talk about these other things you're doing. And went, okay. So we're doing it in this little studio in Hollywood on Sunset, and kind of oblivious of how big it was getting until they said, we're going to New York to Radio City Music Hall. And we go to Radio City Music Hall, and it's staggering. They sell out 5 shows in 2 hours, people standing up. I mean, we were treated like rock stars. It was insane. And we were going, I had no idea how big this, like, I walk out on stage at Radio City Music Hall and was like, they expect me to sing? I go out and be in a square and say funny things. So along that time, then along came American Top 40. And because I had all this television presence, I think that's the reason they gave it to me, not just because I'd been in radio and yeah, he does radio too.
Yeah.
But I had that presence, so it made, good fiscal sense. And so I got, American Top 40, and then that blew up, and it got even bigger, and all those years flying around the world promoting it was a rough job.
So much fun. I was actually your board op at WPLJ. I used to run it every Sunday morning.
Yeah, I remember you told me that. I told you, yeah. It was, and we were like in every major city in America. We were in, they would fly us to Tokyo a couple of times with great big promotions, a huge one in South Africa, and Hong Kong, and Shanghai, and Bali. We went to a station in Bali, so that was rough. Oslo, Norway. A great time.
I remember you coming up to the morning show, hanging out with us at WPLJ with Scott Shannon and the whole crew there. It was such a great time to have you on the show, and several times.
Scott was on Hollywood Squares with me. He was in the square with me.
Was he really?
Yeah, it was great. I like Scott a lot. He's a really talented guy.
He did pirate radio out there in Los Angeles for a while, right before he came back to New York.
He let this guy steal my name, which was not cool. Like, are you kidding? Dick Clark called me at my studio, and he said, look, I was in New York, and I heard this guy on the radio calling himself Shadoe Stevens, and I knew it wasn't you. It didn't sound anything like you.
I remember him.
I check into it, and my lawyers call, and they go, so he adds a middle initial, I guess, Shadoe W. Stevens or something. And then when he came to LA, he called himself Shadoe Steel, which I thought was good.
Wow. Yeah, I think he did middays at Z100 here in New York. I think that's where I remember him from. But yeah,
I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're stealing Shadoe's name. I'm like, what's that all about?
Not right. I guess
Exactly.
because I'd been out of radio for a few years, so it was like open,
Right. I used to watch Hollywood Squares just because of you. I used to, you were my favorite celebrity on there. To just say, see you on there. Who was your favorite celebrity to work with on there? There's so many people that did that show.
Well, Joan Rivers was brilliant. She's so funny. And then Jim J. Bullock. I love Jim. And to this day, I don't know why he didn't become a superstar, because he's so funny. He was unpredictable and fearless. And he made us all laugh more than anybody, more than Joan, more than anybody. It was Jim J. Bullock was just ridiculous. And, and then a lot of people were on because, Little Richard was on. So he was my idol. My whole childhood was Little Richard. Every party of my whole life in high school was Little Richard, period.
Yeah.
Wow.
Those albums played over and over and over again, and we would drink our Cokes and eat our pizza, dance to Little Richard.
What was it like to work in Dave's world with Harry Anderson?
Oh, that was another great experience. Harry was genuinely brilliant, not just as a comedian, but as a writer and a magician, a really good magician.
Yeah, he
So
was.
he would, he would kind of hold court. He and Meshack Taylor was like that too. Meshack is a guy who would hold court. He had lots of things to share, and he was very articulate and well-read and liked to make people laugh. But Harry would go, "Oh, let me show you this," and he would do this trick that's impossible, and your brain like pops apart, and you go, "You sold your soul for sure." It's a trick. Come on, it's not possible.
Wow.
And he would do that all the time. We went to his house in Seattle, and he had like secret doorways and places that they wouldn't take other people into. It was like, he was really unique and great fun. And he wrote a lot of some of the scripts too. So like one script, it was a continuous one take show where the whole thing was done like a play.
Mm-hmm.
Great fun. Very 4 years of really great experiences, and it's the greatest job in the world.
Of course.
Yeah, sitcom, come on.
Yeah.
You go in, you have daytime hours, and you go make people laugh, and you laugh while you're doing it. And it's like the best.
In 1996, you were the voice of Doc Hampton on the Incredible Hulk animated series. One of my favorite things that you actually did.
Yeah.
That must have been real fun for you.
It was doing, I haven't done that many cartoon voices, but I mean, Doc Samson, come on. Who's better than Doc Samson?
Of course.
One. It's the deal. And I'm not sure I did it as well as I would be able to do it today, but I was there and did it and enjoyed it a lot. All of that kind of stuff. I love all that Marvel comic world. I'm a real graphic novel freak. I love all of that stuff. And Mental Radio, I do some.
Great stuff on there. And that's really radio theater of the mind. I was listening to it today. I listened to the Space Show and the Time Show. Unbelievable. I love the sound effects and I love the music.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. It's really found a rhythm with it. It was like a thing that when COVID set in, I knew I'm going to be here. And I thought, I want to do something that I want to do. And I'll just do it myself. I don't have to, normally when you get something going, you have to put together a sizzle and a deck and a script. And then you have to go in and you pitch it. And then you try and tell them what it's about. And then go, yeah, and I'm telling them about, I've got this idea from Mental Radio, and it's got this whole mythology. It's got this whole, superstructure with all these different characters and cliffhanger ending serials and all this different stuff, and about meditation, about the power of the mind. And it's all over the place. And so I just started doing it. And I found that people don't use music for the most part because there's copyright and publishing issues.
Right.
So I say to my podcast guy, I say, look, how about if I use the U.S. Marine Orchestra doing classical music? No publishing, no copyright. He goes, yeah, that would work. So the first thing I did was The Adventures of Guy Good using the William Tell Overture. And it kicked ass. It was great. So then I reach out to the guy who was my director at Federated, Chuck Serino, who's a Renaissance man. He's just a brilliant guy. And at the time he was doing music, but he was the director of all those Federated commercials, and then Shadow Vision, which we did for HBO Cinemax around the same time. And now he's become this world-class music guy, composer.
Right.
So I call Chuck and I say, Chuck, I'm doing this thing, and it's radio, it's audio theater, and on jet fuel. It's fast and it's unpredictable, and you have to pay attention, and it's 3D. And when you listen in your head with earphones, stuff moves around in your head. And he goes, I love it. I said, do you have any music that you own the copyright in publishing? And he says, yes. He said, I've got all these movies I was paid to do that never came out, and I own the copyright in publishing. You can have anything you want. Right. Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
That's great.
So then I opened the vault, and there's all this music, and I started writing for the music, and all these other characters came to life. And then Dave Nichols, who was my head writer at Federated, and he goes, yeah, I'd like to contribute. And then I meet this writer, screenplay writer, Joshua Weinstein, and we really clicked, and now we write everything together. And then Sarge Pickman, who's this brilliant Black Jewish comedian down in Florida, and I've known him for years, and he's certifiably brilliant. And so he says, yeah, I want to contribute. And it's like, I'll send you some stuff. So all these people are sending me these things and voices and things. All I have to do is write the scripts, and then I get this voice out there, and then I just have to put it together and make it all come to life. So it's kind of blossomed, and now there are 16 episodes, and we're working on 17.
Nice.
And we're working on a television version of it.
Great.
Which, if it works, will be amazing. And if it doesn't, it's amazing that we're even trying. So here we sit, like talking about, yeah, we're all buckled down and we're having to stay in our houses, and we could feel sorry for ourselves, or we could get busy. And that's the deal. You get ahead of your mind by, learning new things, or applying yourself, or working on things, or writing, or creating something, or you learn to meditate and you get behind the mind so that you quiet everything down and experience consciousness. And one or the other is going to keep you sane. And so that's what all of mental radio is about. It's all an allegory. It's all about how the brain works and making fun of being afraid, and all of the other things. It's raining amygdalas, squish, squish, be afraid.
I love the sound effects. The sound effects are absolutely
Pretty
beautiful.
funny, aren't they?
They're great. It's like, it reminds me of radio from like the 30s and 40s, the theater radio that they used to do, which is awesome.
Yeah. Well, and that was the start of it. But then I thought, everybody that does it today always does it at the same pace that they did back in the 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And the same kind of music. It all sounds sort of dated. So the whole idea was, this is audio theater on jet fuel. This is contemporary. The music is contemporary. It's symphonic. It's Morricone, and it's John Williams. It has that sound that real movies have. And then you see it in your head. And I do it when I'm creating it. I'm going, I can see that. And then when I finally whittle it down and get it right, and I play it for someone, they go, yeah, that works. So yeah.
Almost like reading a comic book, but it's all going around in your head at the same time. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, it's not one of those podcasts where you can do anything else. It's not like you can, make dinner while you're listening to this, or do something else, like most podcasts where you're hearing interviews and you can kind of have it on the background. This is it's all about immersive entertainment. It's like, just escape, just shut off the world, put on earphones. You don't have to wear earphones, but it's way cooler if you do, and watch this thing come to life. It all dances in your head. It's really, really, somebody called it audio acid.
Now on the Time show, you had Morgan Freeman on the show, and he did such a great voice on that show. Tell us about that.
Well, there is a number of Morgan Freemans. There's Morgan Freeman doing the history of soup, which is pretty hilarious, and the history of the blues, which is also quite hilarious, when he starts talking about the little-known black, artists who did all their music was based around their flatulence, and then he gives all the examples. It's quite hilarious. And Sarge Pickman wrote that, and It was like I made very few changes. It happens sometimes. People will give me a script and then it's way too much, or I have to rewrite it and hone it down, or just flesh it out and make it work better. But I've got some really talented people helping me now. Well, from Dave's World, JC Wendell.
Wow.
JC worked with me for 4 years on Dave's World, and I connected with her a couple of months ago, and she said, "I love what you're doing. If there's anything I can do to help," I said, "I don't even know. I know you're a terrific actress, but what kind of do you do characters?" And then she gives me this list of like 3 paragraphs of, "Well, I do this," and basically, any accent that you hear that you like, I can probably pick it up really quickly, and I do a great 40s. So the one you heard, the one from the latest episode, where the reason we can't all get along today is because our brains are stuck in a 1940s
Yes.
newspaper office with the phones ringing and everybody talking.
Yes. Yes.
So that was all that all came out of, I got this person who can do this and this person who can do that. And Michael Orenstein is another great voiceover artist, and he's doing stuff. And Dave Nichols' wife, Diane Nichols, does some, and my friend David Fessmeyer and Anna are both voice people from radio.
Wow.
That I worked with them when I was doing Sammy Hagar's Cabo Wabo Radio.
Oh, really? Okay.
That was about more than 10 years ago. But, you meet all these people and they have these great talents. And then you go, how can I, make use of that and pull it together into something new?
So you have a whole team working on this.
Yeah, well, it's all me, but yeah, I get stuff and then, focus all the stuff from here, in this little room, and kind of have to bring it all to life and make it, what it ended up being.
I know, it sounds like to me, it's like Firesign Theater all over again.
Yeah, and by the
love
way, I love Firesign Theater, where all blows us on this bus is one of the great things ever written by anyone in mankind. And they gave me it back in the 70s. They came to the studio, KMET, and they awarded me an official Alien Zone landing plaque. So I have this, and I'm official. They can land here.
What are your views on the paranormal and UFOs, Shadoe?
Well, about the first iteration of mental radio was an exploration of all things inexplicable. And that includes the power of the mind control, and the occult, and aliens and conspiracy theories. And this is like 2011, 2012. I did it on Sirius XM, and I did it in syndication. And the idea of it was, an exploration as if done by Monty Python. So it was all funny, but we really did look into all of this stuff. So I ended up being able to interview a lot of really interesting people. One was a guy who said that he had been visited by extraterrestrials in 1997 and grew 2 shoe sizes overnight.
Really? I love that stuff.
And I talked to him for almost an hour and could not poke holes in it. He had a whole litany of terminology of things that, the sanctioned races and the other alien races, and the number of saucers that are surrounding us at any given moment. And it was fascinating and hilarious. And I really wanted to believe him. I couldn't quite, but I loved him. And at the end, he said that he's now an artist on 43 different planets. So I look at his art, and it's pretty good. Like, what? So I don't know what to believe. Yeah, I mean, it would be shallow of us not to think that there's, other life forms and other, aliens, extraterrestrials, visitors. They may be among us now. There's like somebody in government at this moment that may be reptilian. I'm not sure, but I've heard people say, and I don't know what to believe, but I've heard, and it may be true.
You talked about meditation. How often do you meditate?
I have meditated almost every day for 50 years, but the last 36 years,
Really?
really seriously. And I've learned deeper kinds of meditation. For the last 10 years, I've meditated at 3 a.m. I wake up and I can't sleep unless I do. And I get up and I have this altar. And this altar I had built about 20 years ago
Mhm.
by a Chinese artist named Po Shun. True story. I know. My life is like a Marvel comic. Po Shun made magic boxes, and the boxes were made from wood from all over the world, from the Amazon, from Africa, from the Himalayas, from everywhere, Indonesia,
Mhm.
and they were about this big. And I went to him and I said, "Can you make me an altar the same way, like a great big magic box with the secret doors, secret ways
Mhm.
to open it?" And so we worked on it for about 6 months, and then he presented it to me, and it was glorious. It's about almost 7 feet tall, and it has these
Wow.
doors that open up, and it's all this beautiful art with little like squares of displays of the 4 worlds, and inside has these levels that you can put
Oh, nice.
things on, and it makes noise. It talks. My wife for years would hear me, and she thought that it was because I had a candle in the altar. And then, just a couple of years ago, she said, "So, is it the candle that heats the wood? Is that why I hear those crack?" And I go, "No, there's no candle." She goes, "You're doing that?" I don't know, but it makes my whole nerve, because when you get into deep meditation and you get into a breathless state, it's like your body is in deep sleep. It's like it's really quiet. So it might feel like it's out here
Mhm.
or not there at all. And you're experiencing pure consciousness, pure awareness. And you realize it's as infinite within as it is without.
Mhm.
And the reality is that the deeper you go, the farther there is to merge into. So now when you're in this state and then the altar goes crack, and it's that loud, it's a crack like a spark. And a lot of times after I go to bed, now I might meditate for an hour or hour and a half or 2 hours, depending on if my body hurts or if I'm exhausted, but always like somewhere around an hour. And then I go back to bed down the hall and I hear crack. I don't know what it is, but it's all real. It's all real.
So what do you feel are the benefits of meditation?
Oh, it's the only important thing I've discovered in life, period.
Really?
Yeah, there isn't anything close.
Wow.
Um, and meditation is all about focus. It isn't like making your body quiet, making your mind quiet. It's about focusing your mind, and all real meditation starts with a mantra or a watching the breath. And
Mhm.
it's your breath that connects you to the infinite. And so you just close your eyes and focus. You might focus here in your spiritual eye, and then watch the breath go in and watch the breath go out. Now you can enhance that ability to focus by adding a spiritually charged word that have been the kinds that have been used for thousands of years, like Om. So you go Om as you think Om in and you think Om out. Now it may sound like nothing, but it's about pinpointing your consciousness, your awareness, and your focus of your mind and your willpower. So it goes into that. And if you persist, if you don't just, because what happens is your mind starts going, I got that email, I forgot to return on a second. I said, I should really take a shower before I go to bed. Or it's like, before I get up, it's like, I got to get to this meeting. It's like, and you don't try and stop it. You go, oh, there it goes again, the monkey mind. And you just focus back on the breath and the sound.
Uh,
And when you persist, then the heart slows down, the body slows down, and you get into this quiet state, and it's very high. And it's kind of one of those things that you can't put into words because words diminish the actual experience. You have to experience. That's why transcendental meditation works so well, because they take you into it and they give you the experience and they tell you exactly how to do it. And all you have to do is do it. And since you paid them money, you probably will do it. I started with transcendental meditation and I quite like it. I think it's terrific, but I learned other kinds that are deeper and more focused. Now, the side benefit is that the more you focus, the more you concentrate, the better you get at concentrating. So if you're better at concentrating, then the quicker you are to learn things, to learn new applications, to new programs, new languages, math, whatever it is you want to do in life. You're better at problem solving. You're better at reining in your impulses. You're better at communicating with other people. It's a win-win. You know, you get the inner world and you get the outer world all at the same time, and the inner world continues to expand and the outer world gets better too. Might as well go with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I had a question for you, Shadoe. What are your favorite things to do during the day at night? Like, what do? You just do meditation? Do you watch TV? Do you have favorite shows?
Yeah, I do. I like TV. I like to go to movies when we could go to movies. It's my favorite pastime, and I resent not being able to go. And I'm hoping that that isn't destroyed, because I love being in a movie theater. But we watch a lot of shows, and of course, all the ones almost everybody else is watching that are big hits. Although I really love Babylon Berlin. It's a German series, and it's on Netflix, I think. And it's film noir and dark and amazingly, beautifully made, beautifully acted. You have to watch it in German. The English, if you watch it in English, you'll hate it. It's just awful. But you watch it in German and read the subtitles, and it's amazing. The end of second season is one of the best hours of television I've ever watched. And what else? The chess one that we just watched. What's that called? My brain dead. The brain dies first, the body follows.
Are you a Cobra Kai fan?
I watch it by myself. You know, it's one of those things where my wife will have nothing to do with it. She rolls her eyes, but I went, yeah, it's, like easy to watch and a great escape. And they did a really nice job with it. It's one of those guilty pleasure.
Me too.
Things. Yeah. And I studied martial arts for 20 years, and so wow. I've always liked that stuff. Jackie Chan fan and all that kind
Have you heard anything about a reboot, Hollywood Squares?
No, I haven't. Although for a number of years, Rick Rosner was trying to get one going called West Hollywood Squares, which I loved. And it was going to be Dame Edith Evans in the center square at the time. And I went, that's just a brilliant idea. But I guess it never happened. It's owned by CBS, and I don't know what their plans are for it. But it's a great format, and it's surprising to me that nobody's done it again.
Well, if they do it again, I hope you're a part of it, because you were a huge part of that show. It would never be the same without you.
No, thank you. Yeah, it was really fun. And that was like that whole thing I developed with Rick was my whole character for that, which was bluffing. And, and it was like, okay, the greatest one that happened was in the Bahamas. And we're shooting on the beach in the Bahamas, and John Davidson holds up this little animal, and he goes, Shadoe, what kind of animal is this? And I said, I'm so glad you asked me that, because it's something I happen to know. Having been in the Bahamas for a while, I know that it's on the Bahamian currency, and it's able to actually drink seawater. It's called a slamagoy. And the girl said, I agree. And then she went, no, wait, hold, no, it's a raccoon, which it was. And it was hilarious. But then it got to be that I would make these things up, just to be funny. And and then they started catching on, like, so then when I knew the answer, then I would have to tell an elaborate story about the real answer, and you have to really be on your toes to be able to catch it. And I suppose some people hated me, but
How can we listen to mental radio on the radio?
mental radio, it's become really, it's available on everywhere, literally everywhere podcasts are heard. It's on Apple and it's on all of the rest of them. But the easiest way is to just get the free app. After we had a dozen episodes, we put up an app, and it's for Apple and Android, and you just look up one word, mental radio, in the App Store, download it, and it has all of the because there's a section in it about meditation where we talk about real things, and I give 90-second meditation, so you can have the experience of going from rattled to calm in 90 seconds. So it's all original music with sounds that have been used for thousands of years, Tibetan bells and chimes, and all of the tones that quiet the nervous system.
Wow.
And so each one is original, and I think there are 14 of them now, and they're all in a separate category on the app, so you can use them anytime you want. And there's a 12-minute one, and I made a 12-minute meditation that's on YouTube called 12-minute meditation, I think.
Great, that's awesome.
And it's all with Hubble telescope imagery, and it's pretty trippy to watch. It's quite wonderful.
Isn't it recorded in a mosque in Hollywood?
No, a former Masonic temple.
Oh, okay.
It all comes from a former Masonic temple in Hollywood.
Okay.
And it's actually because of Nikola Tesla, who in 1893, discovered wireless energy transfer. This is true. And he wanted to be able to give free energy to the world. And Westinghouse and Edison and these guys, basically ruined his life because there was no way to make money with free, energy for the world. So wireless energy transfer, he also realized that it transcended the physical world into the consciousness and the very spirit of mankind.
Like the
And
quantum.
it's too far out. So he created a secret underground society with members called optimisticals all over the world. And they were people who were there when the world needed help in the middle of a crisis. So, for example, when Roosevelt said, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself," he didn't write that. It was one of us.
Tell us about your children's books.
Well, I mean, they haven't been wildly, successful, but they're pretty cool. The one that was published is called The Big Galoot, and the reason I wrote it is because when my children were little, I had a dream. I woke up saying "button-sided hooey" out loud. This alarmed me, so I wrote it down, and it looked like Dr. Seuss. And I thought, I like writing in verse. I'm going to try and write something for my children. So for the next year and a half, I wrote this epic Alice in Wonderland. It's an African-American Alice in Wonderland. My wife is Black, and my children are mixed and golden. And I wrote this thing, and it's so far out. Then I had sample art done and took it all over, and people looked down their noses and said, "Well, this is very Lewis Carroll. We wouldn't want to offend Mr. Carroll, would we? He's dead." And it's written in rhyme. No one sells in rhyme except Dr. Seuss. I went, "He's dead." It's like, what? And so it never happened. So I took it all over, and it's this massive story, and it too is an allegory. So then I decided I'm going to write something simple and shorter that will lead the way, that will pave the way for the button-sided hooey. And I call it The Big Galoot. Now, The Big Galoot is a story about a kid with size 42 hands. the biggest hands anybody's ever seen. And when he goes to school, the kids laugh at him, and then they make fun of him, and then they mock him and shame him and throw pies in his face. And he says, I'm a galoot, but I have good luck. You can't get me down. I never give up. And they go on a field trip up into the mountains, and they're up high in the mountains, and a storm breaks out, and the wolves are howling, and the thunder is cracking, and the kids are running for their lives. Well, guess who steps up? And I'll tell you my favorite verse that I ever wrote in my life. And it goes like this. But that big galoot poked pigeon-toed feet deep into the mud and would not be beat by forces too fierce for man, woman, or beast. As the going got tougher, his courage increased. And it was like, there he is trying to save the day, and he never does. But because he keeps trying, the day is saved and the kids are saved. And they bring him back, and then they all want to be like him. So
That's great.
do this book. And it's with Dove Publishing, and they're about to put it out. It's like 1 week away from going to it's all laid out to go to the printers and to be released.
Great.
And a hostile overthrow of the company.
Out of all the things you've done, radio and television, what is your biggest achievement?
I don't know. I just try a lot of stuff. I've failed at 99% of the things that I've tried, but sometimes, you just don't give up no matter what. And what I've learned is that because if you keep trying, because you realize I can't see the bigger picture, and that there is some destiny sometime in the future that requires me to learn this, and this, so that I'll be able to do this thing that'll come together like a big puzzle sometime in the future. And that's what's happened with my life. And so mental radio is the culmination of a whole bunch of skills that I've learned because I failed at so many different things. And I had to learn Pro Tools, and I had to learn Photoshop, and I had to learn Final Cut, and I had to learn all of these skill sets, and write, fail, write, edit, get better at writing, and all of these things. So I try to, share that with people that, we don't have the luxury of going into gloom. We just can't. There is no upside to being in gloom and doubt and fear and not having faith. It's a better life to believe that it's just as likely that things will get better as it is that things will get worse. There's no reason not to believe that, because the universe defaults to beauty. You take the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, everything, whether it's the form of waves in the ocean or seashells or spinning of galaxies, it's all beautiful. And that's like Michio Kaku says, the universe is beautiful. It didn't have to be that way, but it is.
How do you keep your voice in such great shape? Did you always have that great voice?
Well, I get, well, no, not really. No, I could play you some from my early career. Howard Stern has things he plays from his early career that are humiliating. Mine are worse.
Right.
No, honestly, when I was at the University of North Dakota doing on radio at night, it's really embarrassing. And,
I can't imagine that.
It's like work at it. It's like everything. You learn vocal exercises, and you learn how to write for your mouth, and
exactly.
Everything is a learning process.
Any advice for anyone getting into the radio and television business today?
Read and write endlessly, and learn how to use words and how to communicate. It's like, what it is as a radio guy.
Right.
The more words you have at your command, the better you are. And the more you prepare, the better you are when you actually have to perform. To wing it is not a deal. It's like, you'll be a little, unless you're a narcissist, you're going to be in the middle of all of this stuff, and you'll be a little tense. And when you're tense, you can't be spontaneous. And when you can't be spontaneous, then everything is diminished.
Wow.
So, you know, you got to prepare, and I prepare for everything. Everything. It
So-
includes like writing out sentences and memorizing them and going, okay, I add that to the calibration back there, and you know, how can I express myself better?
Great
So
advice.
Shadow, what would you have wanted to do that you didn't do before, you know,
Sir.
as you go forward? There's got to be something else like motivational speaking or something you wanted to do.
Well, I've done some motivational speaking, and I there are a number of things. You know, I've taught classes in creativity and spirituality. I'm pretty well versed in spirituality, and spent 2 years studying the Kabbalah, and I spent 5 years studying Buddhism and Kung Fu and Hinduism, and I was raised a Christian Scientist and Presbyterian, so I'm well versed in the Christian, you know, dogma as well. And then it all comes to play, and I believe in the harmony of religions. One of my pieces of art is called Hope, and it's on shadoeart.com, and it's one of the big ones. It's like 10 feet long, but it's about the beauty that faith has created. And I talk about, you know, I can't find the upside of being an atheist. I know that there are proud atheists, and I think that's the only upside, is that you get to gloat. You get to, you know, look down your nose at people and say, "Oh, you poor sad people believing in your imaginary friend." You know, it's the willing suspension of critical thinking. Neatly overlooking people who've spent their entire lives studying and meditating, and they might know something more than you, but maybe not. And I don't see the upside to it. It's like when things get awful, where do you turn? Unless you just are always, everything always works out for you. You know, where do you get your inspiration? And it's such a bleak outlook of life that this is it. You're born, you live, you die, get over it. Or what if there is an infinite design to all of this? What if it goes beyond anything you can comprehend? What if the things that they say are true? What if all of that lies beyond, and that this is a learning process? What if? And you start living in possibilities instead of living, that's it, you're gone, and the world's awful. Yeah, okay, fine. No, maybe not. Maybe it's really beautiful. Maybe there's reason to have hope always. And I stick to that. That's about what mental radio is about. It's about subversive optimism. Optimism disguised as humor.
Nice.
So we can keep in touch with you at shadow.com, right?
Shadoe.com is my, you know, my basic main site, and shadoeart.com and mentalradio.net.
Okay.
And that will give you a little bit of look at the contributors and some of the mythology behind everything, because it's all kind of like conspiracy theories. You know, there's a lot of truth in all of it, and then there's fabricated information told with great sincerity and absolute conviction, and it's up to you to find. So I'll say, you know, Nostradamus predicted this. Look it up. Go
That's
ahead.
Great. Doc, any parting shots for Shadoe Stevens?
I've asked a lot of questions. The only thing I can ask him is probably that his career is so it expands so many different ways that, you know, when you were doing Hollywood Squares, is there anything that you know, doing movies? You said you were going to do a movie. Were you going to do any other movies, or was that?
Well, yeah, I wanted it, but it was a terrible failure. I did this movie called Tracks, and it was a great script. The guy that wrote it was the producer, and it was about a mercenary, you know, like a Clint Eastwood guy who'd been out saving the world, who only wanted to be the next famous Amos, and so he quit the mercenary business and started baking cookies, and he was terrible. He'd come up with ideas like sushi cookies and, you know, puppy swirls, things that look like little dog droppings, and you know, it's just terrible ideas. So he runs out of money, and he's called into a local town that's overrun by crime, and he goes in and kicks ass. It's insane. And a lot of things happened that made it not work as well as it should have, because there's a lot of really funny ideas. But then De Laurentiis went bankrupt. Well, after we finished it,
Oh,
and the show was sold off to HBO, and somebody slapped a $1,100 soundtrack on it. It's one of the it's real 80s. It's the worst soundtrack maybe in the history of movies.
Mhm.
And so it didn't ever really happen, even though it had really good parts.
sad.
So my 3-picture deal evaporated with that. So I ended up doing a couple other little independent things, and then Mr. Saturday Night, because I became friends with the people that were doing that, and I was doing a lot of television at the time, and so it was all fun, but never any real big moments.
Thank you so much, Shadow, for doing the show. I really appreciate it, and thanks for hanging out with me and Doc G. And you're welcome
Thank you, guys.
anytime here on Hamilton Radio.
Totally enjoyed it.
We enjoyed you having you.
Have a good week.
You too. Thanks, Shadoe Stevens. We appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you, Shadow.